Welcome to Jets Rewind. I'm Marty Schupak in Valley Cottage, New York. I'm joined by Ray Clifford in Marysville, Ohio, and Ralph Schrager somewhere up in New England. We're not sure if we're a couple of days past the draft. A few things happened today. I just want to give a quick hello, Ray. How you doing out there in Ohio?
Wonderful. Just getting ready for winter. It's like 40 degrees here today.
I guess we're going to get that. You're sending it our way.
Yeah, we can't.
Right.
I can't hog it all. You guys.
All right. It's nice of you to give us things.
Yeah, how you doing, Ralph?
I'm doing great. Actually, I'm very happy, and we'll get into the reason why in a minute because it has to do with the Jets.
Sure. I just want to read some breaking news, but it's funny, Ralph. Ray mentioned the weather. I talk to Ray like almost every day. The first question I ask him is, "What's the weather like?" Because I know I get it 24 hours later. They always warn my wife.
I'm glad my girlfriend doesn't listen to this broadcast because I don't talk to her every day, and she's going to be very annoyed that you talk to Ray every day.
Every day. All right. Breaking news. We're recording this on Tuesday, May 2nd, 4:35 at 3:40. Came across the New York Jets declined the fifth-year option for offensive tackle Mekhi Becton, a long-anticipated move, and he would have been guaranteed a salary of $13.5 million in 2024. But there's a lot of things involved. I just want your reaction. But before we do that, Ralph, do you have a trivia question?
Yeah, I do have a trivia question. The year that Aaron Rodgers was drafted, 2005, thank goodness the Jets did not have an opportunity to pick him because they traded their first-round pick in a really stupid trade, which I think it was for some tight end named Greg Jolly.
Oh, yeah, the Raiders.
Oh,
Oh my God.
Anyway, they had 2 second-round picks. Can you name the second-round picks that year?
I think it was Doug Jolly, but
Doug Jolly. Yeah, Doug Jolly. He wasn't very jolly, though.
I wasn't jolly after that.
Oh, my God. What a lame trade that was.
Who was their GM then?
Oh, God. Whoever it was,
I don't know. I'm not allowed to look the Jets Rewind draft history, right? Which I won't do. That's okay. I'll think about it. We'll come back to that.
Yeah.
Quickly, Ray, any surprise and what's your reaction to the Jets not picking up the option? And keep in mind also, it broke last night that the Jets signed Billy Turner on the offensive line, who played for Hackett back in Denver for a season and Green Bay. But give me a reaction to Mekhi Becton.
Well, no shock at all there. I mean, that would almost rank up there with the Doug Jolly trade if they signed him to that extension. Now, you can always say, yeah, now he's going to have a career year and be like all world kind of.
We'll take it. We'll take it.
I know. If he's going to do it now.
Right.
But one game in the last 34 that he's played in. I mean, how can you put 13 million towards that? But so no shock. And, if that lights a fire under him, great. But, the signing of Turner was really good. Depth, guy who can play guard or tackle, played in this system, so that made total sense. That was a great move.
Yep. And Ralph, give me your reaction to the.
Well, of course, we knew that was going to happen. I feel like this is going to be Mekhi Becton's Buster Douglas moment. I mean, Buster Douglas trained the only time he ever trained in his life was for that Tyson fight. And I think this is going to be his year, Mekhi Becton. And if some foolish team offers him a contract after that, good luck to them. If I was the Jets, if he had a Pro Bowl season, I don't know, maybe they could franchise him 1 year at a time with that guy, no more than that.
Well, I want to chirp in, and I'm on record, and I like to pat myself on the back because I'm wrong a lot more times than I'm right. You guys are right a lot more times than you're wrong, but I never liked the pick going back when
because you thought that his father was the player.
I did.
So did I. I think we would have been better off with his father.
I immediately texted Marty going, what did we just draft?
His father couldn't get off the couch. And listen, I don't want this to be get on Mekhi Becton's show before we get to the draft. I didn't want the pick. I wanted Tristan Wirfs. Even when he was playing at his best the first year, I kept saying, boy, that guy goes into the tent pretty often, if you remember. And I was,
you know why he likes to visit John Abraham?
Well,
that was another one of you guys who was always in the tent.
I thought they had a buffet in there or something. I wasn't sure. So, and I think Ralph asked a question on the last show that if he has like a Pro Bowl year, All Pro year, do you try to re-sign him? And I said no, and I think you did too.
If he could franchise him, I'd do that. If he does that
for 1 year. And
yeah, sure.
I mean, I might do something like that, or I might try and work out. But you can't just if he does, he's going to think he's going to get top dollar, and you just can't do that based on his history.
Right. And
quickly to go back just a sec, where Buster Douglas is from?
Marysville.
Close. Columbus.
Is he?
Yeah.
Did I ever tell you and Ralph the story about that Buster Douglas fight?
What?
We had a gal at our family business, Simona. She lived on 120th Street in Lenox Avenue in Harlem. Really nice girl. And after New Year's Eve weekend, I said, what'd you do over the weekend? She says, I had a party. She goes, Marty, you're not going to believe what happened. Who showed up? I go, who? She said, Mike Tyson. I said, Mike Tyson? I said, how was it? He said, I don't want to get into the graphic stuff, but he was touching a lot of the females. But she said, Marty, he sat in the kitchen, ate 22 pieces of chicken breast, not with chicken breast. I said, Simona, he's got to fight in like 6. So you sure?
Oh, Marty, if you put money down on that.
Ralph and I have been known to take big odds. And Ralph, I was trying to look for a place to bet, and I wasn't surprised. I couldn't believe it. It was like she was telling me inside information. But anyway, let's get into the Jets. They just had the draft. Ralph, first question I got for you is, you're going to have to talk your friend Ray Clifford and your friend Marty Schupak off the plank, because I am upset, so is Ray, that we flip picks and that Bill Belichick screws us for the 100th time. Tell me why we should be happy with Will McDonald, the edge pass rusher from Iowa State.
Well, my prediction is in a year you're going to be sending Bill Belichick a thank you card for this. First of all, I mean, Joe Douglas can't be psychic. He, that whole scenario, the way it plays out, who knew it was going to turn out like that? I mean, I know you saw that New England pick and you said, oh, there's something, but now I hear rumors that Joe Douglas claims he wasn't even going to draft Roderick Jones, which I don't know if I believe. I don't know who's saying that, but it doesn't really matter. We were all surprised. I'm not going to lie to you and say I wasn't. Who the hell is Will McDonald? I was going to say Will McDonald. I didn't pay any attention to edge rushers because edge was probably one of their deepest positions. But I learned my lesson from when the Jets drafted Sheldon Richardson, and I got pissed off about that because they had just drafted Mo Wilkerson the year before. And it was like, what the heck are we doing? Doubling down again. This guy, Wilkerson's a stud. Then I went online, I looked at film of him, not even highlights, and I was freaking out how good he was. And he was really good. And it's like, you can't have too many good players. I did the same thing with McDonald. I did a deep dive. I must have watched 5 or 6 film breakdowns by guys who know football, and every one of them gushed over him. Nobody was having any negatives about him. And you could just see the guy is a really talented guy. He just wasn't on our radar. And now I hear people saying, well, but he's only going to play 20% of the snaps because Jermaine Johnson played that. Well, they're 2 different players. Jermaine Johnson, Salah made it clear at the beginning of the year last year in training camp, he wasn't ready yet. He had a lot he had to work on. Now, that doesn't mean that McDonald doesn't, but it doesn't mean he's the same as Jermaine Johnson. And
let me just interrupt for a second. I wanted to get into, because you did a lot of film watching. Tell the audience of Jets Rewind and Ray and Marty exactly what their coach Campbell did and the mistake you think and I think and Ray thinks he made at Iowa State?
Well, I don't call it a mistake because I've read a lot of Iowa State people explaining what happens is, and he played him up right in front of the guards and the tackles inside where he should have been outside in space, where he had been. And the reason is, one of these Iowa State fans says, we're not Georgia and Alabama. We don't go 3 deep. We're very thin, and all our guys graduated on the line. And I think he said Campbell felt that our best chance of dealing with this was putting our best player there, even though he doesn't belong there. So I'm not going to blame Campbell, because Campbell's got to do what's best for Iowa State, not necessarily for McDonald. And I don't think it's a bad thing, because he learned how to take on guards, head on. And I think he's probably got a little better against the run because of that. And had he been out in space like he was the 2 years before, he probably would have had 15 sacks, 12 or 15 sacks. He probably would have been a top 10 pick. So we wouldn't have gotten him.
Do you see him playing 20-30% of the snaps on defense? I know we haven't even suited up for a preseason right now.
Well, in Salah's philosophy is that nobody plays a lot on defense. They rotate. He doesn't want anyone playing more than 35 to 40 snaps on the line on defense. And usually there's 65, 70 plays. Quinton Williams is the only guy who's going to hit 40. And certainly him as a rookie probably won't. But that goes for everyone, even Carl Lawson and JFM. So I don't think it's a big deal, because that's just the way it works. The question is he's going to be out there on third and passing situations when the rubber meets the road. That's where you want him. I think he will be. A prediction here, I'm going to tell you right now, after watching a ton of film on him, you're going to start hearing after like 2 or 3 weeks in training camp that nobody can block the guy. I think he's going to be terrific. And I also give Joe Douglas kudos for resisting the temptation to reach for a need, which would have probably been Anton Harrison, which is what I hear all these people. Why don't we just draft Anton Harrison, who I wasn't crazy about? And actually, I've seen film of McDonald going up against Anton Harrison and spinning him around like a top when he strip sacked his quarterback of the end zone. Anton Harrison, give him credit, he picked up the ball and ran it out to the 3. But I also saw one-on-ones in the Senior Bowl. I don't know if you guys have seen that, him going up against Darnell Wright, who was stopping everyone, and he just went around him like he was standing still a couple of times. So that's 2 guys who are going to be starting in the NFL.
Right.
So I don't know, Ray, who do you think you would have picked if at that point? It was really tricky.
Let me just say this. I want to give Ray Clifford a lot of credit, because on the air, he even said he didn't like going back 2 spaces, with the Packers. He didn't want that part of the deal. So, Ray, I want to give you credit. With that said, Ray, do you have a name that you would have liked, or now do you feel a little bit better about Will McDonald, the edge pass rusher from Iowa State?
Well, actually, Marty, we had spoken. We've spoken several times since the draft, and I said then, and I'll say it now, it's not who we picked that bothered me. It was just the moving back thing. I wanted a tackle. I wanted one of the top ones. Now, once we moved back, I knew something would happen anywhere along the line. I knew as soon as Arizona traded up and took Paris Johnson, when they did, that we were going to be losing out at some point on one of the tackles. It just, the math was just there that it wasn't going to. As far as who we took at 17, I didn't have a real problem with that, because I didn't want him, like Ralph had said, I didn't want to reach for it, just any tackle. I wanted one of those top guys. And when they were all gone, it wasn't about McDonald. It was about the trading back. And I think what still has me irritated, and it's not with the Jets, it's with the Packers, is they went up 2 spots to take a guy that would have been there probably in the 2nd round. that's really what kills me is they drafted a guy they could have sat. If they needed that first pick, I thought they were going to take a tackle.
Who'd they
They
pick?
picked up 2 spots to take a guy who
Who was it?
probably Van Ness out of Iowa.
Oh, the line, yeah, the
line.
edge rusher.
Who everybody had him graded more as this. Everybody said that was a little high pick. That doesn't mean they're wrong about him because a lot of guys get taken earlier because a team likes him and they take him. But he would have been there at 17 or at 15.
But Ray, you can't go by that either because he's got to show the fans and everything else he's working for them, and that he's got to get the best compensation possible. I know what you say, Ralph. Check your camera, by the way, Ralph. So I know what you say, but
I can't.
I think Ray, you'll agree with me though. If Will McDonald was the best athlete on the board, then you'd be happy with it, wouldn't you?
If we were picking at 15 and that's originally, and that's who we ended up with, I would have had no problem with it. I would have questioned, not been mad about it. I would have said they must see something that others don't because nobody took, who was it that went a few picks, not a few, a little later. Was that Nolan Smith?
Nolan Smith,
Yeah,
a little
later.
Yeah.
And a lot of things had him rated higher, but like you say, he went, Will McDonald as an edge guy is a lot different than Will McDonald on the inside.
Right.
So, that might have hurt his draft stock a little.
Yeah, it probably did. Funny thing, one of the film breakdowns I saw was these 2 guys doing a comparison for about a half hour, Nolan Smith and Will McDonald. And they were both like, agreed that Will McDonald was a better edge prospect than Nolan Smith. They actually thought Nolan Smith would work better as a 4-3 linebacker, probably.
Really?
Right.
Yeah.
So, and again, just to go quickly, we're going to get into this. It's old news, but I'll just go in round 2, pick 43, Joe Tittman, center, Wisconsin. No third.
Well, let me stop you there, Marty. That was one of the areas I was a little disappointed in Joe Douglas. I really wanted him to trade back into the second round. He could have gotten a center 10 or 15 picks later, probably Tippmann, but certainly the other guy. I really wanted another pick, and I was disappointed that they didn't trade back.
Well, from what I hear, he even tried to trade down in the first round.
Yeah, in the first round. You think he traded in the second?
I don't know, but everyone is saying that this was not a strong draft from top to bottom or bottom to top. The one thing I want to mention, what I heard.
Plenty of people traded up in that second round.
If the Jets did get that tackle, I had heard that he was going to trade back up into the first round to get the running back from Alabama. The Jets scouting staff was crazy about him. Now, I don't know what that says about Breece Hall's injury, but the one thing I can say what's going on now, and I think I texted.
That would have driven me crazy.
I know. But what I think, Ralph, and maybe he's ready physically, but as you guys know, maybe not psychologically. But the one thing you can say about the Jets and Joe Douglas, they're all in for this year. You'll see. And I sent you a link that shows the defensive tackles that are available or going to be available. And you're going to see if they don't sign one now, right after June 1st, they're going to sign one of those defensive.
Oh, there's no question. That's the biggest hole in the team right now.
Yeah, without a doubt. Ray, what's your take? We start talking about Tittman, on Joe Tittman, the center from Wisconsin.
I think, I think he's somebody who, I don't think he's going to be a stud like Mangold right out of the gate. It wouldn't surprise me if they maybe let McGovern handle center this year or part of this year and let him play guard to get a little bit up to speed, or at the very least play a depth role. But I think over the long run, I like it. He's bigger than an typical center, but so he probably has to try and put on a little more weight. But I guess he's pretty athletic. I mean, I saw him at Wisconsin. All the Wisconsin linemen are pretty solid linemen usually. So, I like that they're out of a school that is known for their linemen. I think he will. I don't know if he's going to be great right out of the gate, but I think in the end he's going to be a long-term center for us.
Ralph, I had mentioned, and you disagree with me, that the height is not ideal for a center. Again,
No.
just reiterate to the fans, what do you think about his height? He's like 6'5.5", 6'6".
Yeah. I mean, I understand what you're saying. I've watched enough tape of him to know that, but he'll compensate for it with other skills. Does anyone come in physically perfect? I don't know. There have been a few centers who have been that big, but yeah, I understand what you're saying about that.
Mel Kiper thought he's a good player, but he seemed to say that he ends up on the ground too much, throwing his body.
Really, I didn't see that, but
Yeah,
Kuiper sees more film than we do.
Does. I heard that a little bit. No third round pick. Again, I was sure they were going to somehow trade back and get a third round pick. Because my feeling is, guys, I don't know if you agree or disagree, or I think with all these comp picks that start at the end of the third round, it kind of dilutes everything after the third round.
Yeah, it does. The fourth round is definitely not as strong as it was, but there's still a lot. There's the fourth round to me is the last round where you can there's a lot of talent still. You're not throwing at darts at a board, but
Ralph, why don't you start a fourth round pick from Pitt? Just like it looks like the Eagles are picking players from Georgia.
yeah.
Jets seem to be picking Panthers in the draft and in their undrafted free agents. So
I mean, look, I'm an old Pitt Panther fan from years back, and one thing you say about Pitt Panthers, they don't have a dominant program, but their players become really good pros for some reason. I think Carter Warren is interesting. The thing about him that I like is that most tackles that you see in college, they're usually better against the run in the pass. The pass has, comes later. He's kind of the opposite. For 2 years, he was blocking for Kenny Pickett, who threw a ton of passes, like between 350 and 450 a year. So I was reading some stats about how many hurries and pressures he gave up, but it mentions nothing about how many times he had to actually pass block. His pass blocking looks really good to me. His run blocking probably needs some work, but fourth round tackles do become good football players at times. It wasn't Jason Fabini a fourth rounder, I believe.
Yes, he was.
And what
Yes, he was.
How about Brandon Shell? What was he?
I think he was later.
I think he was, yeah.
Kareem McKenzie was a third. The kid on Green Bay, Bakhtiari, I think he was a fourth. But there are plenty of them, and there's no reason why he couldn't become good. People seem to say because we didn't get a guy in the first round, we're not going to have a left tackle in the next 3 years. I don't know if it's going to be him or not, but it's not because he wasn't a fourth. If he hadn't been injured, supposedly he would have been a second-day pick.
Right. Yeah. And actually, they said if he came out last year, he would have been either a second or third round pick.
Yeah.
He was a captain. He's coming off an injury. Ray, any thoughts on this guy? I know you read the draft manual. So did anything stick out with you about Carter Warren?
They all said basically the same thing, that he'd have probably gone higher because he had a pretty significant knee injury after 5 games, when he came back last year. The thing that worries me, and I know it's just a visual thing, but when I see him, I see Becton. I mean, his size, the way his body is built.
He's nowhere near the weight. Nowhere near the weight. He's about 315.
He's not as big, right?
Yeah, not quite as big, but he's got, all the linemen are big, basically.
Yeah, they're all big, these tackles now. I mean,
but he has that same kind of look to him. So I'm hoping, like you say, he was definitely a pass blocker in college.
Yeah.
And
he has a resemblance. I know what you're saying, but he's not as big. But we'll see. And I'll tell you, it's interesting with the signing of Billy Taylor, that offensive line room is getting fairly crowded right now.
Yeah, I was going to say, how many do they usually keep on the roster?
I'm not sure, but I sent you guys. Did you see the text I sent you? The stats
9 or 10.
Taylor?
Yeah.
Did you see what I sent you on Taylor, the last one? I don't know.
No.
All right. I guess I saw, maybe it was Samina I saw it. It said Billy Taylor brings a lot of versatility to the Jets. Snap breakdown for his career. Left tackle, 247 snaps.
Oh, yeah, I saw
Left
that.
guard, 466. Right guard, 2015 snaps. Right tackle, 2015.
Yeah.
So this is in line with what the Jets like to do now, showing versatility in players they draft, which
Well, you got to when you have two tackles who are
Right.
so vulnerable.
And I love Ralph going back. I remember when Parcells was with the Patriots, and when he drafted Troy Brown, what he did with that guy, and a lot of players after that. So I love that too. Ray, the 5th round pick, another Pitt Panther, Israel Apanakanda. I don't know how to pronounce it. A running back. Keep in mind that Joe Douglas, Ralph and I would always talk about drafting a quarterback every year, but Joe Douglas has drafted a running back every year since he's been with the Jets. Ray, any thoughts about this guy, Israel?
No, not really. I mean, I don't know enough about him to say a whole lot. I mean, he he looks like he could be another good depth guy. Probably gonna take the spot that they dropped Ty Johnson off at, and for a better, he'll be on a rookie deal, so he'll be a lot more economical than Ty Johnson. Could be a bit of a return guy, could be a guy they say he can. Well, the one thing I read is he can his pass receiving might improve if they work on that with him and make him more of a weapon. So I didn't have anything wrong with it. I mean, I would have been, like Ralph said, I'd have been a little upset if they'd have drafted back up into the 1st and took a running back at that point. But
well, let me ask you this: do you think that Michael Carter, the running back, is still a New York Jet on Labor Day?
Yeah, I think probably, yeah.
Okay, and Ralph, what about you?
As far as Izzy goes, when I saw running back, I wasn't crazy about it because I feel like the running back room was pretty solid, but I know that Ty Johnson left. Then I watched a lot of film of him. I think he's pretty good, and I think their running back room is really, really strong now. With a healthy Breece Hall, he's the number one. But after that, I mean, I think you could throw him in a hat and pull a name out. I don't know which one is going to, emerge as the number 2 running back. I like things about all of them. This guy, and I saw him catch a lot of passes in film from Kenny Pickett. He looks like he's perfectly competent at it. I heard someone do a comp of him with Alvin Kamara, and they're about the same size. I went back and looked at Kamara's film in college at Tennessee, and they do have similar running styles. I'd say Kamara, a little stronger, maybe breaks tackles more. This guy is faster and quicker, and he's more of a home run hitter. But I think he has some upside. I think he could be a very good NFL running back.
Okay, good. Does he return kickoffs or punts?
I imagine he could return kickoffs. Punts is a whole different world.
Yeah,
there's.
I think it's a kickoff.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know who they have right now to return punts on the Jets. Is there anyone?
I don't know. All right, let me start with Ralph. I'm going to lump we have 2 6th-round picks. I just want to lump them together. Give me any comments you have. The first one, Zaire Barnes, a linebacker from Western Michigan, and the next one, Jarek Bernard Converse, a cornerback from LSU. Ralph,
I can't say much about Barnes. There's very little online about him. He runs really well for a linebacker, 4, 5, 6. If you're into 40s, probably a special teams guy at this point. I mean, they still have an open spot at linebacker outside. I feel like they got to move on from at least Naz or Sherwood. Those 2 guys have been there 2 years and given them nothing. But I don't know if this is the guy to step in and do it. I don't know if they're going to get Quan Alexander back. The other guy, Bernard Converse, interesting career he's had. A couple of years at Oklahoma State, playing good competition. It's funny, I saw him once make a nice tackle on Bijan Robinson. And then I saw him pick off Bryce Young in the end zone on a play that they show a lot. He's fast. He doesn't play as fast as his 40 time. I can say that. I would say as a tackler, he's not one of these hammers.
Let me just interrupt you because I kind of like this guy.
Yeah.
All the draft picks. And you tell me, maybe I'm looking at it wrong. He's 6'1". Do you think there's any way they convert him to safety?
Well, he played some safety, I think, at Oklahoma State.
Okay.
So yes, I think that's probably their plan.
Good.
From the all the scouts say his hips are kind of tight, so he's really not made for a cornerback. But yeah, I would love to see him as a safety because he's pretty rangy and he looks like he has pretty good ball instincts. Like I said, he's not a hammer as a tackler.
Right.
But we got plenty of those, and they have terrible ball skills and they can't cover. So
Yeah.
I'll take the opposite.
Okay. Ray, any thoughts on the 2 6-round picks?
Depth guys is all I don't know anything about Barnes, honestly. So I was looking for him. They didn't even mention him in either draft mag, and I was just like, well, this is like my thought then became, like Ralph said, probably special teams is what they're looking at, and some depth in case they were in a bind that that he can work his way in as one of the backup linebackers. I don't see him ever really being a mainstay on the defense, but I like the other guy for his length and that he could be somebody that, who knows, he might be just somebody who develops over time into somebody, either safety or cornerback, that really is a useful player and maybe surprise people and develop into a starter someday. But it's something where you get down around 6, round 7, you're taking flyers on guys, and I think that was a good one to take a chance on.
There's always, every year you listen to other Jet fans, and they always will love a certain pick, and they'll say, "Oh, Joe Douglas, he stole that one," and and
Yeah,
I'm going to start because I think the 7th-round pick, Jack Kuntz, or whatever you pronounce it, from Old Dominion.
Zach. Another Zach. Yeah.
But Zach with a K. I mean, I see all these great numbers he put out, but I'm not impressed with this guy unless you guys could talk me out of that. I'm just not impressed at all from what I've seen of him. He looks to be more like a lumbering type of guy. So, Ralph, why don't you start? What's your opinion on this tight end?
Yeah, when I heard about him, and he had an injury. You hear all these, he's an athletic freak, and then I watched the film on him. I'm with you, Marty. He looks soft. He's thin for a tight end. I don't think, I heard people say he's more like a Mike Gesicki tight end. He's not a blocker. What are you going to do with him? That's the thing. He'd be a depth piece, and I cannot see that guy playing on special teams at all. He just doesn't look the part.
He doesn't look it. I don't.
No.
And Ray, I think we spoke. I mean, the drafting a tight end and seeing what they invited to their mini camp in the upcoming weekend. I mean, do they like their draft pick for last year, the tight end from?
That to me is the biggest question mark. I don't understand that.
His name is, let's mention his name again, Jeremy
Ruckert. Yeah.
Ruckert. Yeah, I mean, Ray, is it a possibility that the thing that we were talking about this, which I don't understand, if you remember, the Jets coaching staff was coaching that Senior Bowl team.
They coached him. Yeah, he was on.
Now he left early because of an ankle injury. But Ray, could this be an indication they're not crazy about Jeremy Ruckert, or am I looking into this?
As far as drafting the 7th guy, I don't think so. Go on, Ray. But
well, maybe they don't like Yeboah if they were going to keep another tight end, because Yeboah is still there too. But I don't know. We had the same question, and you have to wonder if maybe it's a prove it year for Ruckert that he's got to, show something.
I think he's definitely
very limited time last year.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I know he had an injury all through training camp and probably into the early part of the season, but I was waiting for them to, get him into the offense.
Yeah.
It just seemed odd. Yeah.
It seemed very odd. He was in the last game. He graded out beautifully as a blocker, and he maybe caught one pass. I mean, they invested a 3rd-round pick on him. They really went out of their way. They said he was way the guy on top of our board. This is the year. We'll see. I mean, he's one of the most intriguing questions coming into this year, as far as I'm concerned.
Now I know Uzama and the other guy, Conklin, this is their last year. Is that right? Or they could get rid of him after this.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
I
that
think Uzama will be gone. I think unless he has a bad year, I think Conklin will still be around.
well,
Yeah.
out of the two, I think we're all unanimous. We like Conklin better. This guy, he gets the ball. He gets up some steam. The guy looks great there.
Yeah, I think with an accurate passer, he's going to have a good year. But I'm counting on Ruckert being the second tight end.
That would be funny. Maybe they just did it to light a fire under his rear end. Who knows? But I always knew I don't think his blocking is ever going to be the issue for him. I think it's all come down to is he a weapon at all on offense? And if he is,
right, I see a lot of his highlights from Ohio State. He made some great catches, though.
And you look at that wide receiver room, he didn't get.
That's true.
A lot of throws to him.
Marty, it puzzled me more than anything last year. Really, it did. It was very strange.
Well, let's see what happens. Any more comments on the draft picks before we get into the undrafted free agents?
Yeah, I have a couple of points I want to ask you guys about. First of all, Joe Douglas seems to, and he's been doing this since Bryce Hall, try to get these discounts where he gets players who are injured, like Kuntz and Warren, and they get them a little later on a discount. How do you feel about that approach?
You could go both ways with that, Ralph. As you know, I played 1 year of college football, and I'll never forget the first time I was in the locker room looking at all my teammates, their knees and their thighs. It looked like I was looking like at the Frankenstein monster with all this stitching and stuff on the knees. I never saw anything like it. So I think, as far as injuries, I think most of these players have had injuries to that point in their career. Now, what you're saying is that they're looking at guys that get injured right before they're about to go into the last year before the draft.
Or in the middle of their last year,
and it's discounted. But I don't think it's working out great, to be honest with you.
Well, Bryce Hall is healthy. He's just not that great, but he seemed okay. So I don't know.
Bryce Hall won't be on the team this year, and to me, it's a dilemma. I'll tell you why. 2 years ago, the last game of the year, he was awful. But if you watch him, when he played against, I think it was Tampa Bay, he was phenomenal that game, and he was great. And Ray, was it he that was covering Chase? No, that had to be
Chase. Was that Eccles? I don't know.
I think he covered when we beat Cincinnati 2 years ago. He did a great job on him. That was Chase.
Oh, the 2 years ago.
Year, if I remember right. Yeah. So he's a dilemma. But I remember the last game of the year, I think it was against Buffalo. He was ridiculous. He was awful that year. 2 years, he was awful. So I don't know what's going to happen. I think they're going to end up trying to trade him. I don't think they're going to get anything for him, though. Maybe a 6th or 7th round pick.
Anyway, Ray, what do you think of him trying to grab these guys on the cheap, who
injured
or with injuries?
Well, it's usually a late round pick, and I'm like, taking a flyer on a guy who's getting over an injury might be have more of an upside than taking, this tight end and
the tight end has an injury, or he would have been picked a little higher, probably.
Yeah, maybe.
My feeling is that
I don't have a problem.
Because of the way medicine is now, how advanced it is, I think it's not as big a risk.
Yeah. Right. I think that's what they think too. Is
yeah.
Hey, you know what? Let's, this guy had, check the doctors, check him out, say he's healthy, look at him how before, if he can get back to pretty close to where he was, if not where he was, he's still a useful piece. I mean, I think they look at him as depth guys who might surprise and end up being a diamond in the rough.
Warren was pretty high for, and he's coming off an injury.
Who's that?
Carter Warren, the tackle from Pitt.
Well, Ralph, I just want to ask you one question. It's not a Jet question, but the point with injuries, what did you think of the quarterback from Tennessee?
Hendon Hooker.
Yeah, well, that's exactly what we're talking about.
I read a great line someone wrote in a comment. He didn't realize what he was writing. He says, "I would pick Hendon Hook. I would groom Hooker." And what's your question about him?
that's a perfect example of somebody who got injured.
What was he, a second round pick?
I'm not sure.
He ended up being a second rounder, I believe.
Who picked him up, Ray? Do you remember? Is it Detroit?
No, I don't think it. Well, I don't
Just
remember now.
while we're talking, I'll put his name. But Ralph, what's your feeling on a quarterback like that?
As far as what? I mean,
Taking a shot on him.
well, in the second round, if you need a quarterback, yeah. I mean, I think quarterbacks, they
Detroit took him.
Detroit took
round.
him.
Yeah.
Detroit had a lot of picks, so they could afford to take a flyer on him in the second round.
Exactly. Yeah.
They had an interesting draft. They grabbed the guy for the running back from Alabama. Thank God, because I can't believe that the Jets were actually seriously thinking of going for him.
Well, but apparently that was contingent on them getting Jones.
Right? Yeah.
First pick.
Yeah.
That would have drove you crazy. But keep in mind, you might have said the same thing last year when they moved up in the second round to get Breece Hall.
Well, the thing is, they have Breece Hall now, and they have Michael Carter, and they have Bam Knight. So it was like, I mean, whoa, how many running backs do you need?
Right. All right.
All right. I have one more thing I want to ask you guys. I don't know if this is a league-wide trend or it's just with the Jets, but the last couple of years, it seems like so many of their players they're drafting are older. They're 23 and 24 years old.
My opinion, and I have no stats for this, but I would guess that it's kind of, for the most part, in the league, just because of going through the COVID, a lot of players were playing because of the rule change. They were playing like 4, 5, or 6 years in one school. So I think it'll thin out moving forward. I think we're just about past that time. That's my opinion. I don't know. Ray, how do you feel?
That's probably part of it. And I think the other thing, at least from the Jets standpoint, and I kind of agree with it, is if you're going to take a flyer on a guy later, I'd like to have a guy who's had a lot more games under his belt to kind of get a feeling for it. I think you get a better feeling for what kind of player they are if they've been around in college for 3 or 4. You got more tape on them, you got more stuff. And if you're taking flyer on a guy who jumped into the draft after 2 years,
that's true. But Jermaine Johnson, first round pick,
Right.
and Will McDonald, first round pick. They're 23 going on 24. I think Carter Warren is too.
Jermaine Johnson had that monster year with Florida State. He may not have gone had he stayed with, was it Georgia or Alabama?
Georgia.
If he stayed with them, I don't know if he'd have gone that high.
I'm just fascinated by how many there are. Carter Warren is another one. There's
Yeah.
Fun.
Well,
I like it. I like it, honestly.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if it's a bad thing or a good thing. I think one thing, they're probably emotionally a little more mature. So that's not a bad thing. They might not have the upside because they're sort of, more mature physically. But I don't know. I just find it an interesting pattern. And Marty's point is probably part of the reason.
Yeah, I think so.
Also, can they transfer now and not sit out a year? Isn't that
once.
Right.
Do the second.
They transfer again, they have to sit out.
Right.
Unless it's medical reason or whatever, or some other reason. But
now I know in McDonald's case, he wanted to get his degree. If he had gone out the year before, he might have been picked even higher because he was a first team All-American when his junior year. But he's, to his credit, he took a risk because he could have blown out his knee and really screwed himself. But
Carter Warren.
Yeah, exactly.
That's the chance you take, especially football. That's a big chance. There's a lineman or something.
Ralph, I think that was Ray's point when he was talking about number of games played. I think he's leaning towards this Lindsey Scott Jr., the quarterback, who's played for a few different schools.
He's another one. Yeah, he's been in.
Look at his stats, Marty. I can't believe Anthony Richardson went before him.
Lindsey, by the way, we're going to get into quickly. We're going to have to start closing this out. But the Jets have a rookie mini camp. They report in Thursday night, and it goes through the weekend. And what it amounts to is these undrafted free agents, where Joe Douglas and his staff got on the phone and try to sell the agents why they should come to the New York Jets instead of the Patriots. Or
He's probably downplaying all our look, you're a lineman. Our line stinks. Come on in, you know.
Of course, yeah. And
It might start.
in addition to that, they have something called, I guess, mini camp invites, where they invite guys not under contract. I'm sure they get paid per diem,
Right, yeah.
but they're given a chance to show their stuff, and they may or may not be asked to come back in July for a tryout, which is a good thing.
I wonder how many of those guys have ever made it. I mean, a lot of undrafted free agents make it, but those guys who were the local, a lot of them are local guys, you know.
Right. But I sent you guys a list, and we're not going to read it off, but I'll just say there are two guys on the undrafted free agents and one invitee, and Lindsey Scott, who we're all fascinated with, the quarterback who measures 5'11". But the two players that the undrafted free agents that I really liked, and I spoke to Ralph about one of them, was a wide receiver from Southern Miss, Jason Brownlee. And also it's I think he was a safety from Florida, Trey Dean III, who I was
right. Which would be cool because we have McDonald the fourth, and then we'd have Dean the third. It's
That's right. So those are like three players that I'm really a little bit fascinated with. I also like they had invited, and he accepted, Tim DeMorat, the quarterback from Florida, but he ended up signing a contract, I think, with the Commanders or somebody else. So he won't be showing up. A nice name to know is another safety from Texas. His name is Marquise Muddy Waters is his nickname. So that's
not bad.
Name. But they got a couple of guys for some big schools. They got Travis Dye, running back from USC.
Yeah, Travis Dye's talented, but there's another guy who had an injury, and that's why he wasn't drafted.
Right,
Marty, I don't see the guy, the linebacker from South Carolina on your list. I kind of like him. He had two devastating injuries. He actually was at Carolina for 6 years. This is another like 24, 25-year-old.
You keep talking, go through the list. Let me try to see.
I watched film of him. Last year he played a clean year. He was healthy the whole year. I like him. I think that guy has NFL talent. You know, he just has had these two ridiculous. He broke his ankle one year and he broke his hip one year, but he was back last year and he looked good. And he, believe it or not, he looked pretty good in coverage. I hope they give him a close look.
Gerard Green.
Yeah. With an E at the end, like Sean Green.
Right. Gerard Green.
Yeah.
He appeared in 51 games, 214 tackles, 14 tackles for losses, 3 sacks, 5 pass defense, 2 interceptions, 1 forced fumble.
He just had the look when watching him of an NFL player, his build and the way he tackled.
Okay, this is it. In 2020, he played only 1 game, had a hip fracture, which you mentioned. 2021, played in 2 games due to an ankle injury. And he bounced back last year. He played in 12 games. He had 3.5 tackles for loss, 2.5 sacks, 1 interception, and 77 tackles. So there might be something there, Ralph.
Yeah, I hope so. And I agree with you on Brownlee. Yeah, he also has the look of an NFL. He has an NFL body. He's a physical guy, and he's interesting too.
Yeah, Ray, anyone from those lists, and we're going to close this out in just a minute, I'll get back to trivia, that stood out to you at all? Did you see anybody from Hamilton, New York?
No. No, nobody from Hamilton. But the only one who anytime it's practice squad, you're really taking a flyer. But this guy they list as a tight end wide receiver, EJ Jenkins out of Georgia Tech. I know they don't think he'll much. He's 6'6", 245. So that could be somebody, if he has any talent at all, it could be like a guy for the red zone possibly. And that I kind of like the thought of that guy if he were to pan out. But
Marty, we didn't mention the one guy that they pay the most for, TJ Luther, the little wide out.
Right.
Could be our punt returner. We'll see. Who was the guy?
Gardner Webb, and I think you're right, Ralph. I think they paid a lot for him just because of his punt returning.
He's he's a slot guy, and he's got some juice. That kid, he's pretty good. He kind of reminds me of that. Remember that guy they had a couple of years ago from Wake Forest? It's a little guy, a slot guy.
I remember.
And we thought he was going to be our punt returner, but he ended up getting picked up by another team.
Yes.
I'd like to find out how he's done. Actually, I'd be interested because I liked him. Yeah.
And they had let's see, Caleb Tanner from Nebraska. I don't know if you know anything about him. Just looking at some of the big schools, and another Caleb Johnson, a linebacker from Miami. I read something about him. I forgot what it said, but it should.
Yeah, he was a D tackle or something. Right. It'd be nice if they could grab a D tackle out of these guys, and
be great. And just mention that before we close out. I told you guys they're going to sign someone, if not now, after June 1st. A couple of names: Shelby Harris, Michael Brockers, Al Woods, Chris Wormy, the Coleman. I go Sue. I never pronounced his first name right.
Dominican, yeah.
But not, yeah. So there's a lot of players. Of course, most of them are over 30. I think Shelby Harris is probably the best one. It's another Seattle.
Oh my God! Some of the guys are looking at Al Woods. He's like 36, but
he's 36.
But some of these guys who are just run stuffers, they can be 36. They just have to stand there and take up space. Well, that's what they need one for.
A good player who's on that list though, but he hasn't really played a lot. I remember he was on the Giants. Linval Joseph. He was a good tackle, but I don't know what he has left. He's 30. Yeah. So 34, I'm sorry. So, all right, Ray, anything else before we get back to the trivia question you want to add?
No, not really. I mean, as far as the undrafted guys, I was looking at the safeties too, but I mean, I don't really have anybody that I'm really just like thrilled is there as far as expectations.
They must love Tony Adams. That's all I could say.
Yeah.
Well, I hope we all love him.
And on paper, I would say that the Philadelphia Eagles absolutely destroyed the draft.
Phenomenal.
Unbelievable.
Roseman did a great job.
Well, I'll say this about Tony Adams. He's shown me more in the little he's played than what's the Sherwood or Nasruddin have. Those two guys, I mean, if they're both on the roster this year, I'm going to be very disappointed. They need to move on for them.
I really thought Sherwood was taking a step last year.
I thought he was too. He got hurt that first year, and that game against the Patriots, all Belichick did was throw wherever he was. He was terrible that game. Never forget that. I think it was too much on his plate. Ralph, go back to the trivia question. We're going to close this out.
Yeah, the year Aaron Rodgers was drafted, the Jets got out of the first round because they didn't want Aaron Rodgers, and They got Doug Jolly, a mediocre tight end from Oakland, and they got their second round pick. So they had two picks in the second round. Can you name them? Ray should know one of them.
Usually, he's
Mike Nugent.
Right, Mike Nugent, Marty's favorite.
Oh.
He was their first pick in the draft. Can you imagine?
Herm Edwards said he was a captain. That's why.
They love the cap. Yeah.
But if you saw him in college, you would have thought, we're going to have him for 15 years. We got our Adam Vinatieri.
I know.
He couldn't even hit the end zone by the time he got there.
Something happens in the pros.
The Patriots did draft a kicker and
off of one of the picks that the Jets gave him.
I saw that. Yeah.
The other for second round pick, just FYI, was Justin Miller from the cornerback from Clemson. Terrible. But you know what? He's got Pro Bowl next to his name because he made it as a special teamer.
That's right. I remember we returned a kickoff for a touchdown.
Yeah, talk about a fraud. He was a fraud. He was about as bad as D Milner, except without the injuries.
Not drafted as high, thankfully.
But as Ray says, a lot of people had D Milner in their top 10, right, Ray?
Right. Yeah.
Oh, he was definitely up there. I mean, they didn't want, they just looked past the injury stuff and everybody.
By the way, one thing we didn't get into was the compensation in general for Aaron Rodgers. There's a lot of debate whether the Jets overpaid. All these people think Joe got fleeced, and I don't know. What's your guys' feelings on this?
Well, when we spoke about it, we were pretty on top of the conversation. If you remember, the only thing is, and Ray brought it up, it would have been a lot better if it wasn't based on the snap count and maybe like hosting a playoff game. I would have preferred that because unless he gets injured, he's gonna,
Sure.
5% of the snaps he's gonna do it. What about you, Ray?
I was okay with two things the two that bothered me. Obviously, I've said it a number of times. The flipping of the first round picks, I think, was a huge thing for me. And the other was, I think they should have made that next year's first rounder contingent on him playing next year, not 65% of the snaps. I was like, well, you might as well not even put anything.
I don't know if you can do that because the draft comes up before the season. So, he could easily quit between the draft and the regular season.
Again, it's hindsight, but I still maintain, Ralph, I spoke to Ray. I think it was Ray, or it could be. Jets would have been better off, I think, if they just waited like till the night of the draft. I really believe that.
Maybe. I have a feeling they didn't want to play hardball because I just feel like
they want to
was holding up so many things, basically the whole league schedule. But my feeling on it is, having followed drafts all these years and studying Jet drafts from the past and seeing all the garbage that they have picked in the first and second rounds,
I agree.
That my feeling is every morning I wake up now and I jog, I am like feeling hope for this year and looking forward to it for the next 4 months. I am so upbeat about this team that it's worth it to me. And the idea of it's another season with Zach Wilson or Mike White or Carson Wentz or Carson Palmer,
Joe Flacco.
I'd be miserable for the next 4 months. Joe Flacco. It's like I feel like this guy has raised everyone's energy so much.
Well, Ralph, Garrett Wilson is going to be the #1 pick on everyone's fantasy team this year.
And the other thing is, I truly believe unless he gets a really bad injury, that he's in it for at least a couple of years. Everything he says is he's committed to it, and he realizes how much that they gave up for him. So I believe the guy totally.
I'm not a huge fan of him as a person, but I think he's handled everything right. Even going to the Ranger game and the Knicks game the other night, I think he's really, do what he has to do. He went.
No, the Rangers won that game, but they lost the next one.
The next one.
And the Knicks lost. Yeah, and
which wasn't a surprise to me.
He practiced a little bit. I think he has a renewed energy. I think.
So.
Yeah. Look, I don't. When I heard that the general manager tried to call him and he said his cell wasn't getting good. I don't believe this guy at all. Things like that. But look,
I do have one question for you guys. We didn't actually say what would your grade be for the draft?
Which is kind of like impossible to do, but I would say B+. I would say before our show, I would say B, but listen to Ralph Schrager, it's B+.
I'll say B. I kind of wanted it to trade back in the second round. I also there was a safety that from Georgia, Charles Smith, who I really had my eye on, and the Jets traded out of that pick, and the team who got it picked him, and that kind of thing drives me nuts. I hope the guy doesn't turn out to be a good player.
What's his name? The lineman you and I were saying we went out of Tennessee there the other year, and Kansas City the pick, and they took him.
Yeah,
I was after the draft, I was like C+ at best. I'm up to a B-, and we'll see.
I think a lot of Jet fans are coming around on McDonald. They realize now that they look at him, the guy is talented.
I like McDonald. It's the other guys that I'm not sure of because of their injury status and stuff. If they pan out, I think it'll be a
they're not all going to pan out, but a couple do.
Like Carter Warren, if he does, I'd say it'll be a good draft.
Yeah, Marty, I got one more quick thing. Is it okay? Or
go ahead, let's squeeze it in.
It's going to come up soon, and Jet fans are going to freak out, and I think they're making a mistake. When the schedule comes out, they're going to freak out thinking that we got the toughest schedule in the world.
Oh, I know that.
And I got to tell you something. The Jets have got a break this year. Do you realize this year they're going to play 10 games in the Meadowlands and 7 on the road?
Right.
Which is
because of the Giants.
Because of the Giants, and then they get the 9-8 at home. So it's 10-7, which is amazing.
But Ralph, what kills me though, I think I said this to both of you, is they're gonna be on prime time 6 or 7 times.
Well, that's
I can't
your
stand-
problem, my problem. The other thing is they do have tough games, but they play Kansas City and Philly at the Meadowlands. They play the Chargers at the Meadowlands. 3 of their 4 toughest games, non-division games, are at the Meadowlands. So that helps too. Dallas is the only one on the road.
Opening Thursday night. What do you
Everybody's
think? Jets, Kansas City, Jets, Dallas. Giants? What do you think?
I think the Jet. Well, they'll probably just do a remake of the Hall of Fame game. Were they playing in the Hall of Fame game?
Cleveland.
Playing Cleveland. There you go.
No, I think the Jets, Kansas City would be great. That's a great game. Opening.
I
game.
haven't seen an interview yet. I want to see an interview with Nico Hardman. How does it feel to go from Patrick Mahomes to Aaron Rodgers? It'll be very interesting after the year is over for him to compare them.
Yeah. It's going to be fun, and Ralph Ray Clifford is going to be at the Hall of Fame weekend.
Game.
It's going to be all.
You don't want to see Zach Wilson?
That's football.
That's all you're going to get to see him.
There's going to be so many Jet fans there. I'll tell you. Right. We're going to have to close this out. The clock is ticking. Ray Clifford in Marysville, Ralph Schrager in Massachusetts.
Parts unknown, yeah.
In Valley Cottage, welcome to the New York Jets, Aaron Rodgers and all their draft picks, and they're going to have a rookie mini camp. Should be fun. So with that, we'll sign off until next time.